the actual subject of the matter, which is secret cities in Russia. And I think Ray made a good point to me that the secret cities in Russia started popping up when the secret city of Oak Ridge became public and stopped being a secret. So if Oak Ridge was there because of the World War II, then I think secret cities in Russia were there because of the Cold War that started right after. And so they started in early, mid 40s, 1940s. And you have to remember that that time, Gulag camps were at their height. So there was a lot of free labor for building anything that Stalin wanted to build. The mining gold to pay for land lease agreements, the prisoners did that. Building those crazy canals connecting the White Sea in the north to Volga River. That was done with human labor of the prisoners as well. And building those secret installations was another thing that was used, that the prisoner labor was used too. So from the start, there were two main groups of those secret cities, and I'm going to show you a map in a second. The first type were Soviets were paranoid about their borders. So the best way they thought of keeping the population in check and making sure that, of course, their concern was not that somebody would get in, although that was used as an excuse, but that somebody will get out. So a border, there were a lot of closed areas along the Soviet Union borders. To give you an example, after the war, when Russian occupied Prussia with Königsberg, as it was known back then, and it became Kaliningrad, the whole area, the whole Kaliningradskaya Oblast, the whole Kaliningrad area, this enclave that was separated from Russia by Belarus, it was all off limits to the Soviet citizens. You know, nobody could go there, only people who had residence there. And until, I think it's still going on, that your residence address is stamped in your passport. So you have in your internal passport a stamp telling police where you live. And if you're somewhere you're not supposed to be, they clearly can see it by asking you to produce your ID papers. So Kaliningrad area was one of those. And also after Russians occupied Estonia, Estonian islands were off limits to anybody else who is not a resident there, because they were kind of so far into the Baltic Sea that you basically, if you're fit, you can row a boat across and get into Finland or Sweden. And that, of course, was not something that the authorities wanted you to do. So the only area it was, those border secret areas were closed off to everyone aside from its residents and, of course, the military or the border troops. This part is slowly, this group of secret cities is slowly phasing out unless you are at a military installation proper, of course, authorized, you have to be authorized to enter, but the area around it will be open for a Soviet, for a Russian Federation citizen may not be so for a foreigner, but at least Russians can roam freely in their own land. The second type, and I am going to show you a map now. Please bear with me. Okay, so I will, where do I go? Can you see it? Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes,
We see
okay.
it.
Let me, where do I go to make it larger? Go to slide. Where was it that?
Under view.
Under view. Under view. And I go to
Full screen.
full screen.
At the bottom.
Got it. Okay, well, a little bit better. Okay. So what you have here is all communities that had sensitive military, industrial, or scientific purpose, such as arms manufacturing plants or nuclear research sites, they would be on this map. You can see by the legend. I know you may not, your Russian may be a bit rusty, but you can see by the legend. So the nuclear sign tells you where the nuclear facilities are. Submarines, of course, will tell you where the Navy bases are. A little or a big ICBM missile will show you installations of anti-aircraft or international ballistic missiles. And where you have this, the fourth from the top, this would be space research and space launch installations. Most of them were purposefully tucked into away from the borders. Those little inserts are basically magnifications of shaded areas. Okay, so this one will go to here and the top one will go to here. You can see heavily manned Kola Peninsula because this is right next to Norway, and Norway is a NATO member, and of course we have a lot of submarines there. Same way with around Vladivostok because of Japan and Korea. The way secret cities were first formed, they were not on the map. This is obviously, this map would not be possible even, I would say, 25 years ago. But and they were not known, they were not on the map as people who lived there, and they lived there in those really very ordinary looking, this is one of those secret cities, very ordinary looking, typical Soviet town, neat, green, orderly. Because they were closed, they had absolutely no crime, and that was one of the attraction. But they were not on the map, and they were known under a euphemism of mailboxes. That means that there would be a mailbox number for the whole city, and the mailbox would have a bigger known city nearby. So for example, this one is called Krasnoyarsk 26, which means that there's a big known city on the map, Krasnoyarsk, but the postcode 26 will be reserved from a secret city that may be 200, I don't know, 150 miles away. And that's how all the mail will be delivered there. You would not know that you're passing one when you're on the road. It will just have a sign like this: entrance of the foreign citizens is strictly prohibited without special permission. And that's it. There will be no road, there will be no sign, there will be no street signage. Things will be kept quiet. Um, as I said, so they tried to keep those secret installations unless they were important for Navy or border patrol in the middle of the country. They felt that this way there will be less of a chance that a NATO bomber would be able to make it there in case of an attack. Um, a lot of them were also built next to the rivers because for processing of for nuclear processing, they would need a lot of water. And we know that that's what happened with Chernobyl. When Chernobyl disaster happened, there was a river got seriously polluted, and it's pretty much that's how people became aware of that first. Um, there was a lot of heavy industry in those places too. Uh, Things could be pretty innocuous from our view, but it would still make a sacred city. They would be making something would be declared a matter of strategic importance, and this could be something for agriculture, for example, because feeding people is of strategic importance. So if you can't have I don't know, wheat processing machines, suddenly it becomes a problem. So the secrecy stamps would often go on items and on products that we wouldn't even think of being secret. Um, as I said, there was a lot of prison labor involved, and of course, movement in and out was tightly controlled. Um, I was born in Leningrad, which is now called St. Petersburg, and right next to it, we had. Is it on the map? No, because it's no longer a secret city. Kronstadt, which is a Kotlin island right in the middle of the Gulf of Finland, and it was strategic because it would be right on the way if somebody were to come in by water into Leningrad. That would be the island very seriously fortified and having one of the uh, big Baltic Navy bases was there. So I lived 20 kilometers, yeah, like 15 miles away from it. I knew it was there. I couldn't go. I could not make it. The easy part for them to keep it secret was the fact that it was an island and you couldn't get there by land. But now they built a bridge. You can drive into Kronstadt. And by the way, it's if you are ever in St. Petersburg, a side trip to Kronstadt would be interesting and rewarding because there are precisely because it was secret, it was kept as is, and there was very little change, modernization. Um, uh, Talking about modernization, people living in those secret cities were happy to be away from the rest of the country, so to speak. They were paid more, they had higher salaries. As I said, there was no crime. And the biggest thing that they had no shortages. There was never a food shortage. All the items that most Soviets would have to line up for and will never be sure that there will be enough for everyone. This was never an issue for people living in this closed settlements because they would be supplied at the top of the line just to make sure that nuclear scientists and people building atomic bombs are happy. This created even resentment from the general populace who lived around closed cities. When the inhabitants of closed cities would come out, they often met with resentment, and there would be fights, and they would be attacked, or there would be an argument that would resolve in a fight, and they were always beaten up. Why? Because they could not resist. If they were ever caught in something that would be investigated by the police, or something that would be linked to some sort of criminal activity, they would lose their right of residence in the closed city, and they would have to leave, losing their benefits, their salaries, and their access to fruits and vegetables year round. So I would stop here today, and next Monday when I am back, I am going to take you to places like the one I just showed you on the map, on the pictures, just give you a few examples what these closed cities are today, and maybe tell you a story or two about funny things happening there. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Alexi. We really appreciate you taking the time with us this morning, and we look forward to having you back next Monday. And maybe we'll have some questions for you then. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I have time. Go ahead.
All right. I appreciate that. Does anyone have a question for him right now?
Alexi, are you able to go back now?
I do. I have a U.S. passport, so I have to apply for an entry visa, just like any one of you. But it's been a while. I'm not too crazy to go back because of the things happening there. Not because I'm afraid, but just because I'm not supporting the current government. And things are getting a little bit more autocratic in Russia now. Of course, I'm in contact with my friends and classmates, and so with the internet, we talk, and yeah, but I can go if I want to. Not the last, the one before last summer was already closed. I went to the Baltics, kind of took my 13-year-old there as a soft entry to Russia, where we would probably go next. So yes, I can go back.
Were you a Russian citizen?
Yes, I was. Yes, when I lived there, and when I lived in India, I was a Russian citizen, and then they actually deprived me of my citizenship because I behaved. My behavior was incompatible with the Soviet citizens' prescribed mode of behavior while abroad. I visited foreign legacies and embassies, and I fraternized with foreigners. Being foreigner myself, it was so easy, right? So yes, I was at that time, but I didn't know I was deprived of the services. Not only when I went back and had to deal with some bureaucracy issues regarding my apartment there, that's when I found out. And that was in violation of the law, actually, because there has to be a decree by the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet to strip me from my citizenship, which I could never find. So it was kind of done in a hush-hush way, I guess. And I know that my example was publicized. You know how that you shouldn't be. When you are sent to study abroad, you shouldn't defect. and a lot of students that were ready and willing to go abroad the year that this happened, they were kind of put on hold because everybody was investigating what, were they checked thoroughly, and could they really, would they come back? Because you know how one example sets, people start thinking, well, if he managed to do it, maybe, I should try it too. Well, they wanted to discourage that.
So
When you
Alexei,
go now, you go as a Russian or as an American?
I say it again?
When you go now, do you go as a Russian or as an American?
No. I can't go as a Russian. I go with the U.S. passport. No, yeah. I never back. I would probably not be too, still would be a little bit uneasy going back without the protection of U.S. citizenship.
Alexei, I have a question.
No,
How did the sites the secret cities communicate with each other? Did they use telephone, fax? How do they communicate?
Well, the Soviet Union had two systems, which is somewhat similar to what US has. It has like an open system of communications. And remember, back then there were no cellular, so we're talking about landlines. And there were dedicated hardware lines that were point to point. That's why traditionally when you see a picture of Brezhnev or someone who is made to look important and high up in the KGB, this person would have 5 or 6 telephones on the desk, because each of them would be a dedicated line to one to the government, one to KGB, one to, I don't know, Border Patrol, something like that.
Okay. Any other questions before Alexei has to leave us?
So you are a U.S. citizen, but you are employed or working for a Russian publication?
I'm not employed. I'm freelance. I sell my articles to whoever wants to pay me, and I can sell to Russians. I can send to Ukrainians, to Indians. If it is in English, I can send to Australia, New Zealand. In Russia, yes, my market primarily is Russian Federation. And I had no problems with, and editors would not work with me if I were to still be a persona non grata, and it would be discouraged. So I guess things are okay.
Did you know at the time that you were defecting? Or
it's a very good question. No. Things start happening when I was already out. So I didn't have a plan. Actually, my mom kind of like, when she was seeing me off, she like, you're not going to do anything stupid, huh? But when I was in India, I was reading a lot of things that I couldn't get my hands on back in the Soviet Union, and I was talking to people, and I kind of like felt that I have advanced enough in my development that going back would be a step forward. Like I've been exposed to something, and I couldn't just let it just be there somewhere inside me and live with it back in the Soviet Union. So it was kind of a natural step for me. Well, if I know all this, I might as well act on that.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you again next Monday. Okay.
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
Wrote, what years are you talking about? Now, we're talking about my story, or we're talking about secret cities? What are you asking me? I left I left the Soviet Union in 1981, and I did not go back for when I was supposed to, which was like 10 months. So in 1982, I was supposed to go back and I didn't. And I arrived in the US after my 2 years in Greece in 1985 or 1984.
Okay, very good.
I have to run. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Now, next,
Ray,
yes.
I have to leave in a minute, but I have a question for you. At the east end of the turnpike, there's a stone house that I understood was the only building left standing when General Groves first came, and that he stayed there. And this week I see it's been demolished. Do you know anything about that? I assume it was a heritage site.
No, General Groves never stayed there. That's the Brannon House. And it was not the only house. It was one of many houses left. What it is at the Manhattan Project time, what it is known for is it was the last one built in this area before being taken over by the Manhattan Project. And it was on the National Register of Historic Places. Rick Chin, the Chins bought it. Actually, it had a fire a number of years ago that burned the back portion of it. And then the Chins bought it and demolished it within a few weeks. And I don't know what their plans are there, but their indication was that it was unsafe and would cost too much to have refurbished it. So it's gone. Now, it's bad that it's gone from a historical standpoint, because it was an excellent example of that housing that was here before the Manhattan Project, a unique example, a rock house. Others were wood houses. But just because it's on the historical register does not keep it from being demolished, as you can very well see. Thank you for that question, Dan. I appreciate you asking it.
Okay.
Ray, we lost your picture.
Well, I'm sorry. I can see it.
Oh, there you are.
It's
Sorry,
gonna-
maybe it was because I tried to change it to speaker view. I apologize.
Oh, no,
That's
that's
probably
probably
me.
it may come and go, but I'm hoping that I'll stay in there. So we have a treat for you this morning. Has anyone seen the Oak Ridger yet? I have not.
I have.
I have.
Oh, Ronnie has. Okay.
I have.
Ronnie Bogart is here with us, and I'm going to turn it over to her and let her talk to you about the Weinberg Papers project. So Ronnie, I've made you a co-host so you can share your screen. It's yours.
All right. Thank you, Ray, for having me. And I'll keep this short. I loved listening to that last presentation about secret cities, and we're sort of going to talk about a secret collection because it wasn't known to very many people, but Alvin Weinberg left his personal papers to the Children's Museum. And my mother, Selma Shapiro, was the director there for the first 33 years or so. She was a friend of Alvin's, and she had this great commitment to preserving the history of Oak Ridge, from the Appalachian exhibits to the difficult decisions exhibits to several others. And Weinberg really appreciated that, and he told her that he wanted her to have his papers. And I think most of you know who Alvin Weinberg is, and so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but just to say that he came here in 45 and stayed and was, you know, a director of the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and left there somewhat unwillingly, very much unwillingly, and then opened the Institute for Climate Studies over at ORIU. And when he left ORNL, he had like 16, 17 filing cabinets that he brought with him. And in addition to 30 or so large boxes, and all those went to the Children's Museum. And the only people that really went in there to see them for many years, because this was donated back in 1986, were a few scientists. And what my team has been doing is recognizing that those needed to be permanently archived. And we couldn't let a lot of people go into the collection because then the papers, which were, you know, some of them obviously fragile, wouldn't be able to manage that. So instead, we wanted to create sort of a virtual version of his collection. And so over the last 3 years, that's what we've been doing. We've had young archivists that graduated from the University of Tennessee who have gone through the whole collection, put it into the special boxes, and then we have digitized it. So now that we have about 80% of the collection online, it's time to open it. And you guys are the first people, because today is the first day that it's going public. You're the first people who are going to see it. So I'm going to share my screen and show you the database. Can you see that okay?
Yes,
Yep.
we got it. Thank you.
All right, so, you know, this collection is so large, it's over 200,000 pages. So we have this wonderful database that gives you all kinds of ways to search the collection. So whether you're a scientist or someone from the humanities or just a person off the street, there are ways to easily look and see what's in there. And so I'm just going to give you a really quick demo of what you might be able to do. So one of the things that the archivist did was establish keywords. They're called subjects. So I'm going to click on Browse Subjects. And obviously there's hundreds of subjects, and I'm going to pick K. And that has Kenneth Cole. Most of you may not even know who Kenneth Cole is, but I'm going to click on it in order to show you how you would use the database. So what comes up is it says it found one record. And so one record is a file folder with papers in it. And, you know, so you can see there's a box number and a file number associated with it. That won't in itself be of interest to you, but we'll click on this one. And this is so I can explain to you sort of how the database is set up. The very first thing you see is an attachment, and that's the file folder, which we'll click on in just a minute. There's also what the archivists refer to as metadata, and it has the subject and the dates that appear in that particular file folder, what kinds of documents are in there. And then I click on the folder itself, and it immediately is now going to take you into a file that, if you look up at the top, there's 153 pages in it. So these file folders have hundreds of pages in them. And so for the person who has a lot of time, you might be scrolling down and just looking one thing to the next. But let's say that you're not as patient and you are really interested in finding something specifically about Kenneth Cole, because there might be other subjects that are in this folder. So then I use a Control F to search, and I'm going to just search on Kenneth. And it tells me that there's 13 matches in here, and
It's showing what she
Ronnie,
lost
we're
her.
not seeing that. We're still on the first page.
oh, really? Okay. I wonder why that doesn't catch up. Let me see if I can
I think when
make
you
it do
clicked
that.
on it, it brought it up on your screen, but it didn't change what you're sharing. You'll have to go out of the sharing and come back in and share that particular screen.
All right. Well, that stinks, but I will do that. Just,
I don't know.
I'm trying to decide if it's worth it, but let me try that just for a second, just to.
There's an alternative way you can just share your screen rather than trying to share a particular object, and then everything you click on will just come up.
That's what she's doing. She's sharing her screen.
Yeah, that is what I'm doing. I'm not sure why it doesn't want to cooperate. But
Well, if you share that specific thing, you're only sharing that.
yeah. Okay. Well, and what I can do, just so that I don't waste too much time, is that I was just going to explain that you can use the Control F to search on a particular word, and then it will take you through the file much more quickly. And I'm not going to bother trying to get you to the page that I had actually picked. But what you'll find in this collection.
We are seeing it, Ronnie. We're seeing the Kenneth Cole letter now.
Oh, you are seeing it now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So if I scroll, can you see me scroll?
Yes, yes.
We got it.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, now. Okay, so let me just see if it, let's see if this happens. Now, if I go to a different page, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, well, so you notice this is something from 1948. And this is a letter from Weinberg to Dr. Kenneth Cole. And you can see that he's having a conversation here about, dear Casey, I finally made a firm decision. It is to stay right here in Oak Ridge as the director of the physics division. So he goes on to talk about things to to explain, why he would stay and what impact it would have. And this is the kind of thing that you see throughout the collection, is a lot of communication with other scientists and other people that will be, I think, very meaningful to those of you as you go through the files. Now I'm going to take you back to the main screen. I stopped for a minute so I can pick up where I left off. Go back. Now it'll be a question if you can see. Now, can you see the main page again?
No.
No, you're not sharing your screen anymore.
Yeah, that
If
is
you
just
all
really
will just
pain,
let
but-
me talk with her, I think we'll get this done better. Stay muted, please. All right, share your screen. We're seeing the main page now.
All right, yay. Okay, that's what I wanted you to see. What I just wanted to say in the few minutes that I have left is that there's a lot of different ways to search. And so we just searched under subjects. You can also go to some saved searches that I've prepared that were things that I thought would be of interest to people. You can go to featured collections where there's individual items that are just like a few pages long. For somebody that doesn't know anything about the collection, they can go in and look at the featured items that I've put out there. There's also a finding aid that the archivists prepared that show every single file in the collection. And then if we've loaded it, then we have links directly to a particular file folder that you can go from there. And then, the simplest search, and I'll just try that just to see if we can do one more thing before I stop, is you can just search on a word and, and see what comes up. And in this case, I was looking for Cherenkov radiation, and I came up with 7 records. And this is just to show you that, sometimes you can get hundreds of records. So sometimes if you have too many records, you can go to the left. And this is a way of making your search more specific. You can reduce it by a particular topic and see that it would reduce it that way. But you'll always end up going in file folder by file folder, and then searching, for the particular word that shows up. So I think that's all I really need to share. I just wanted you to know that it was there, this new database is available, and that it's easy to use, and that it can be used by people that know a tremendous amount of science, or it can be used for many other things. This is a really historical collection because Weinberg was not just a scientist, he was a statesman. So there's a lot of information about things happening all over the world, things that were happening during the years from 45 to 85 in the country, and many papers that he wrote. I mean, it is just really vast. And I think that people will really appreciate this legacy that he left Oak Ridge.
Ronnie, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, if any of you have questions for Ronnie, you can unmute yourself and ask her the questions, or you can put it in the chat and I'll be watching that. Also, the link to the collection I have placed in the chat. So you want to go into the chat and just copy that link. You'll have it for your future reference. So anyone have questions for Ronnie? Just unmute yourself and ask your question, and or put it in the chat.
Yeah. Yes, I have a question. When you looked for Kenneth Cole, you looked under K. I would have looked under C. So explain that, please.
Yes, that's a very astute comment. Yes, so the archivist came up with these designations, and we didn't realize in the beginning that they were starting them with the first letter of the name. And that's something that we'll continue to look at. We're going to continue to curate this, I think, for the next long period of time, and determine if we need to do some kind of relationship there so that people can search both ways. But that is how the original design has got first name first in the subjects.
Ronnie, this is Charles Jones. I have 2 questions. The first has to do with things that are secret or sensitive. And I assume that you excluded things that are either secret or sensitive.
Yeah, so what happened when he donated the collection is there was a review, a security review was done on all the files before they ever left ORICL. But in addition to that, there were a lot of things that were declassified, but I want to, I have not put them in the folder in the digitized part of the collection at this point, because I want to spend some time with ORICL going over some of the documents that I thought had some sensitivity to them. So those aren't loaded yet.
Second question, how was the funding provided for this wonderful project?
This is all private funding. We have, that was really a challenge over the last few years, was finding the funding for it. But these are all individuals and some sponsoring companies in the local area. We have applied for grants, and I still have one more grant that I'm hoping that we get. We won't find out until April, because we still have 20 more boxes that we need to digitize and some of the photos. But all the other funding is private funding.
Other questions?
I think there's something in the chat. Can you see that, Ray?
I don't see the link. Ann is saying that.
Yeah.
Well,
I found it. I found it.
Okay.
Oh, I see the question. They're asking, is the database software a commercial project? Yes, this to me is one of the best parts of the whole project. We looked at publicly available databases, and we went with one of the best commercial products that is out there today. The company is Lucidea. The name of the database is Archivera, and they have provided not only a fantastic database, but the best customer support I've ever seen. And I was in my entire career, I spent it with dosimetry and records and was very familiar with large databases and working with programmers. And these people are the best I've ever worked with. And we have every year, we have a maintenance agreement so that every year we have continuing support. So even though, like myself and a couple of other people are administrators, we have the real technical people to turn to when there's anything complicated. And this will go on in perpetuity for this database.
Where and how is the information stored? In the past, when we had archives, the media to read the stuff was not available anymore, and it became unusable.
Yes, so that's the whole reason for going with a reputable company that will maintain this for decades to come. So as technology changes, so will the database. That's why it's going to have permanent support, because that, as you're saying, we all know that when you digitize something, you have to keep up the technology, and that is exactly why we went with this reputable company. All right. Well, listen, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and enjoy the database.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Yes, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on with us. And
All right.
We look forward to getting into that database. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay, or if you need to leave, we understand.
All right. Thanks, Ray.
I have placed in the chat a selection of articles that Alexi just emailed me saying that you all might be interested in looking into some of his articles. So if you'll just open the chat and highlight those articles, just highlight them all and cut and copy them off, put them somewhere on your computer where you can get to them later, then you'll be able to get to those articles that he would like to share with you. So, and I'll have those again next week for you. But if you want to get them, just go to the chat and copy that whole section that I've just put up there. All right. Mike Stello, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Ray.
Okay, very good. I've asked Mike Stello to come back again this week and to bring us some additional information from the Oak Ridge Room or from his experience. So we want to give him a few minutes to share with us and interact with you to answer any questions that you might have. What are you going to share with us today, Mike?
Well, Ray, I thought I'd start with, there's two concepts or two groups of people I'd like to highlight. I'm working on articles about or reports about, and I guess of course most of you are familiar with the Calutron girls of Y12, and so over the years I had noticed a similar group at K25, and I named them tentatively the line recorder ladies. The line recorder was used in the gas diffusion process at K25 to sample the gases as they were coming down the cascade for the level of enrichment, or just the makeup of the gas at various points in the cascade. And there were ladies that were assigned to do these duties, and they would just take a sample and they would send it for analysis. And based on that analysis at various points in the cascade, just to see what the enrichment levels of the 235 to 238 ratio was at various points. Well, they seem to, from what I can tell, and next week I've got some good pictures that when we were developing the K25 museum, there were some good pictures that my coworker, RP Prince, who's a K25 expert, had come up with. And I'd like to share those. I don't have them shareable today, but they're really nice. They're similar to the Calutron girls or the cubicle operators at Y12. They'll have them, lined up at their stations. And those line recorders are really just mass spectrometers. And they would, they were enriching the uranium. I mean, when you sampled, you had a sample of enriched uranium. It's just that obviously it kept getting increasingly richer, more enriched as it went through each stage. So I just thought it was interesting. Those ladies had never really been highlighted. So I'm trying to locate some. I've found a couple. I don't think I found any that are still alive. And then another separate group is sort of analogous to the Hidden Figures ladies in the movie Hidden Figures about the NASA workers. And they were just called calculators, which was, of course, a common term for, at the time, I guess, for people that were checking the figures, doing the math. And I did find a granddaughter of a calculator. The calculator herself was named Chrissy Day. And it was kind of interesting. The calculators were a little more accomplished mathematicians. A lot of them had gone to City College in New York. And somehow, they ended up here. I guess they recruited good people who were good at math obviously they were valuable to check the figures. And then they just sort of fell into obscurity, I guess. Another one, a lady that I know several of her family was Betty Kwaznoski, Ted Kwaznoski's wife. I guess her grandson, she was a calculator. And in the old logbooks, it just mentions their names. And Miss Chrissy Day, who was in charge of them, it has a mention of Miss Betty, they called her, or Betty Kwaznoski, sending her to check the figures and everything. And I knew of the Kwaznoskis, but I never knew she had held that position. But I think she had been kind of a math whiz in her younger days. And so I just thought it was an area that was sort of lost to the ages. Some of those people that had done that work and then, became a housewife or a business person or whatever, and their technical background and achievements and contributions were sort of lost. So I've gotten a little collection of the calculators. Arthur Squires, who was a brilliant engineer, he was basically in charge of the enrichment levels for K25 and Y12 and what they should be, the targets, and he was in charge of all that. He acquired these mathematicians and accumulated. Another fellow that you might look up is Walter Pitts. Just Googling Walter Pitts was sort of an Alan Turing type. Brilliant. He never came here, but he was in New York and possibly in Chicago. He was kind of eccentric. But it mentions him in our logbooks. It just mentions the bearded genius, they called him, and along with these ladies. And it would say, they would just, like commodities, we need 8 calculators, So when you first start reading it, what do they mean? And then when it says their names, calculators, and then it has these ladies listed. So I really lit onto that. And it was in a document that part of it was still, sensitive. And so I think we've had most of it declassified. So I'd kind of like to, before I left K25, I tried to grab hold of anything that was publicly released. So I've gotten some names and photos, and it turned out Miss Day, Chrissy Day, had a long career and turned out to be a supervisor and moved up the chain and was, I think, retired in the 80s here in Oak Ridge. and I found her granddaughter in, I think Kingston or Harriman, somewhere in Own County. And I just talked to her on the phone, and I was glad she wanted to speak. And it was sort of funny. I said, well, before you say anything, how do you remember your grandmother? And she said, she was always known to be the smartest, most intelligent person in our family. And so I thought that was kind of neat that she had started out as a, you know, in charge of these other mathematicians and worked her way into a management position at K25. But so anyway, I guess, Ray, that's about all I had. I just wanted to introduce the calculators and the line recorder ladies, both of which are still in development. I mean, I've got a lot of notes and photos and a few details on it, but I just wanted to sort of highlight those people to the world, or at least to Oak Ridge.
Mike, I have a question. I ran across a document this last week, and I don't know whether it is pertinent to what you were talking about last week or not.
Okay.
On the front page of the document, it lists Stone and Webster's Engineering Corps, John B. Pierce Foundation, Skidmore, Quincy, and Merrill Architects, and it's under the Manhattan District Housing Plan.
Okay.
Is that something you would be interested in?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, those are all, you know, succession, the succession of names, of course, is the people that designed the town. And then John B. Pierce had the Semesto houses, you know, that was the developer of those. So that'd be interesting to see what it says.
Okay. Sure. I'm new to Oak Ridge. I've been here for 4 years, so I'm naive about a lot of things. But right now, there is an auction of items, and this is one of them. And it's through the high bid auction website. There's 2 items on this particular slide and item number. One is a globe that is from the Russian era. And then this document, it shows the front page, and then they flipped open and it shows a diagram. So the auction closes on Friday. And right now those items are $30.
Okay, yeah.
So I didn't know whether there was a foundation that you could use money from, because usually as auctions progress, then the prices escalate because there's more people bidding on them. But I thought it would be interesting if you don't have that document, or if you want another copy. It obviously looks a bit fragile, but if you want to stay in touch with me, that would be, we can work out some sort of a system.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting.
I think it would be interesting for you to take a peek at it and see if it is something, and if the condition of it is what you would like,
Sure.
So
yeah,
there
thanks.
you go.
Thank you.
End of my story.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, for better or worse, I tend to hoard things like that. It helps now with the library. We get things donated like that, and yeah, I've got stuff in storage, and I'm trying to just hoard information now instead of actual physical paper and stuff. So sometimes a picture or a scan or whatever. I know Ray's done a lot of that too, and you just don't want to miss something or get some little tiny piece of information, that disappears because you didn't preserve it. But yeah, that would just be very interesting to see what it is now. The picture, there is a picture of the front and the back of it on the auction site, so that would be interesting just to see it. See, Ray, you're muted. I think you're talking.
Thank you for telling me. It's hard to stay unmuted. Thank you for coming, and look forward to you coming back again next week and bring us some of those pictures that you talked about.
I will.
If you'd like to share with. Anything else for Mike before we move on? Comment in the chat. I appreciate Stephen making a note that you can copy the entire chat. So if you're interested in getting anything over there, either copy it individually or copy the entire chat. I want to show you an image of the Brannon House. Dan asked about that, and let me get this up, and then I'll share my screen. Give me just a moment to do it. And if I go here and go for,
Hey, Ray, it was interesting when you were talking about the other structures besides the Brannon House. You know, it does note there were 165 farmhouse that's still standing when they bought the land, and that, as you know, of course they used for offices. And I guess if you were lucky, you got a nice farmhouse if you were high up.
all right, I'm not sure. There it is. Now let me find my share the screen button. This, I love Zoom, but it's a little tricky about what it lets you do. So I'm hoping you can see the house now. And that's the Brannon House. The fire was back in the kitchen area. And I don't doubt that it gutted that particular portion of the building. But it was a nice little rock bungalow style house that would have been good to preserve, but again, it always takes money to do that sort of thing. And the owner had tried for, I don't know, Mike, what, 2 or 3 years working with the insurance company to get that finished, and then trying to sell the property. And eventually, as I mentioned, it was bought by the Chins and has been taken down. Okay. All right. Any other questions or any thoughts, directions you'd like to see me take for next week? I'd be interested in that now. So just join in, unmute yourself, and give me some thoughts or ask me some questions. We've got just a few more minutes here.
Hi, this is Judy Kidd. I'm at Canterfield, and we have a Ken Cole that lives here. I wonder if it could possibly be the same Ken Cole. He's almost 100 years old.
Oh, I would not be surprised.
He's not very well. He had COVID, and we thought we were going to lose him. He'd been in the hospital, but I was going to go see him today, so I'll ask him if his middle initial is S.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Just ask him if he remembers Alvin Weinberg and having communications with him, and you may have a very interesting conversation, because I'll guarantee you if it's him, he'll remember it.
Yes, well, bless his heart, he's almost blind and he's almost deaf, but his mind is still working quite well. We love him.
I'd have to stop and calculate the time period. If I remember right, the letter that she showed us may have been in the 60s. So that would have been, what, 70 years ago? He would have been young if he's still alive.
Right.
I kind of doubt it, but it won't hurt to ask.
Wasn't Alvin talking about staying in Oak Ridge in the 40s?
He did.
He wrote that letter to Cole.
Yes.
So Cole was active in the 40s.
He did make his decision to stay, and you notice in that letter he was talking about his interaction with the biology division, with the I can't get his name to come up now, but the person who started the biology division.
Hollander, Alexander Hollander.
Hollander.
Yeah. Hollander was mentioned in that letter, so it may very well be that you're right, that letter was back in the 40s, and if so, that Kenneth Cole would have to at least be a son. He wouldn't still be here, I don't think.
Wouldn't have to be, Ray. My mom and dad came to Oak Ridge for the first time in 45 or 46, or at least right after the war. And she's still alive and well and 101, still living here. So it could be, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
101 wouldn't make him necessarily a son. So
you're right.
Depending on how old he was in 43. I mean, my parents were 24 years old in 43.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Looking at that letter, he had addressed him as Casey, Kacy. So that might have been a name, a nickname or a name he went by, and I would imagine he'd still be going by that name.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. You just have to follow up on that, Judy, and see what you learn. It may very well be. It is possible that it could be him. Okay.
We have several people here that are very interesting that would make good stories. I'm going to have to send you a couple of names. One of them just moved in here, and she moved to Oak Ridge in 43.
Mm-hmm.
And then she became a professor up at Michigan, and then she became a nurse and went to Africa.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
And trained nurses over there. Fascinating life. And she came back here. Her name is Jean Enix. And she came back here to take care of her 90-year-old mother. And after her mother passed, Jean decided to move into Canterfield.
I see.
And George Joseph, who used to be the band director at Oak Ridge High School, and did lots of other interesting things in his life, is also here. And he's in his 90s also. But boy, does he have a great mind. He tells stories all the time. And I think you'd love him.
He wrote the Wildcat football song.
Yes, he did. He wrote the song. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of interesting people in Oak Ridge, and I'm delighted that when people connect me with them, and we're able to either do a story or get them in an oral history. I wish we could get the K25 History Center open as soon as we can, and it has that oral history capability. But another thing, Keith McDaniel and I are doing, I guess they're called webinars. They're sort of a podcast, but they're a video podcast. And we're doing it on Zoom. So we can connect with people all over and bring them on and interview them. We have one set up for next Saturday that we're going to interview Sam Bailoff. Does anyone remember a store in the downtown shopping center, Bailoff? You remember that? Well, Sam
Men's clothes.
Yeah, men's clothes. And Sam is living in Knoxville. He's a neighbor to a good friend of mine, and she has connected us. So we're going to bring him on as a featured guest and interview him through Zoom. So we can do that. I mean, we could do anyone from Canterfield, or we can do it a number of ways. But I do appreciate those connections, and if you want
one other person is Ken from Ken's Barber Shop.
Oh,
he's also here.
Oh my goodness! I think he used to cut my hair.
Yeah, I wish he could cut hair, because none of us, we all need it. But he's as sharp as can be. He and his wife are here.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put this in the chat, if I can get my fingers going.
Hey, Ray, I collect the bags from the old stores. I've got a Bailoff's bag, shopping bag.
Oh, you do?
Samuel. Yeah, I could I could let you use that to show.
Yeah.
That's
I'll do that. We'll talk about
I'll
that.
dig it up. Yeah. I've got a bag. It's got like Samuels and Nettie Lee and French's, with had the white bag with the little rings around there and stuff. I guess about 10 years ago, I just started kind of hoarding them, and I found a stash at the flea market one time this guy had some.
Well, good for you. That's good. I'll tell you what you'll do. If you'll take a picture of that Bailoff and send it to me, I'll show it to him when we're on with you. I'll put it up and show him that bag. He'll get a kick out of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Not only was Sam Bailoff the owner of that store for a number of years here in Oak Ridge, he's a veteran of World War II and a participant in the Battle of the Bulge. So I'm sure he'll want to talk about that. So I put my email address and my cell phone number in the chat. And I'm serious about appreciating contacts that you give me. Obviously, I won't be able to follow up on every single one of them, but I'll try. And if there's a way that I can get to these people, I know it'll be of interest to me and maybe to others. So if you know someone that you think has a story that I would be interested in, for either historically speaking, this podcast that we're doing is called Hidden History, the stories from the secret city, and we post that up on YouTube. And you can go, if you go on YouTube and just look for Keith McDaniel, it'll be a whole series of them. We've been doing it now for what, Mike? We started with you. We've been doing it nearly a year, hadn't we? Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it seemed like it was at the, sort of the start of the pandemic, or right, right as a couple months into it. So I guess it's been a year. Yeah.
That's sort of what got us thinking about it. We were wanting to do something and we couldn't get out of the house. So we said, hey, this Zoom thing is good. We can do it that way. So we've been doing them every other Saturday. We do them, and then Keith posts them up on YouTube, and we'll normally put them out on Facebook. But it's just sitting and chatting like we're doing right now. And and then we have try to have some connection to Oak Ridge, but just like we just finished one. By the way, I'm just taking a fisherman's friend there. Have I ever told you the story about me doing a presentation, losing my voice? I went and got my fisherman's friends out of my pocket. Fred Berry, you on here? I believe you're the doctor that said I was worried about you. I thought you might be putting nitroglycerin in your mouth. But anyway, any other thoughts you have? We're at about a minute before we finish. Did you enjoy Alexei and Ronnie and Mike? I hope you have today.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
All right.
Question for a general question.
Go ahead.
Since you asked for general questions, was there anything going on besides the Manhattan Project during World War II? And were there any contributions made to the war other than the bomb?
Yes, there was a lot. There were a lot of aircraft industry. The Holston gas works. They were building diaphragms, and I'm just rambling for a minute, but there was a lot of industry involved in building things for the war other than the atomic bomb. Now, the Manhattan Project reached out to hundreds of industries too to build parts for the project, parts for pumps and motors and what have you. It was an enormous effort across the nation. The war effort was, and everybody wanted to work on something to do with the war effort. Now, they didn't always know what they were doing, but in lots of cases they did know. There's a book out, and I'll find it for you for next week. A fellow over in Knoxville has written it, and it's a story about World War II and East Tennessee. And it talks about lots of other things that were going on in East Tennessee other than Oak Ridge and the Manhattan Project. So you've asked a very interesting question, and I'll spend some time on that next week and have that book for you. I wish I could think of the name of the book and the man, but I know I've got it. I'll find it, and we'll talk about it next week. Thank you. Anything else?
Thanks, Ray.
All right.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.